I have a scary experience that happened to me and my significant other. If many don't know what a doppelgänger is, it is someone that looks exactly like another person. Except they're also not a twin. It's more like a ghost identical to a living person, an apparition in the form of a double. About 2 years ago, my boyfriend and I went out drinking with a couple of friends at a bar. At around midnight, we all headed home. Apparently, me and my boyfriend ended up getting into a stupid drunk argument on the way of dropping off his buddy. His buddy lived all the way over by Coon Dam. Anyone who lives in that area or in Minnesota knows that that dam is very haunted due to lots of accidental drowning and suicides. As soon as we dropped off his buddy, my boyfriend got out of the car and started walking towards the road. Down further that road is where his mom also lives at. I stayed at his friend's place waiting for him to come back because I knew he was pissed and had to walk it off. It was about 2 in the morning at this time and my boyfriend never returned. I tried calling his cell phone multiple times but did not receive an answer. I assumed that maybe he went to his mom and fell asleep, and I'll just wait until morning to get him. However, I realized that I had to work at 8 a.m. that morning. The friend mentioned to me that perhaps my boyfriend went to walk by the dam, which was apparently about 3 blocks behind this house. So, the both of us decided to drive out to the dam to see if we could find him, thinking that he possibly passed out somewhere. This is where the scary things began. As we were pulling into the dam, there are these patch of woods that were partially lighted up to my left. As soon as we turned into the dam, we saw someone or something that looked just like my boyfriend. The same clothes, hat, everything. We saw him run right across the car in front of the headlights really fast into the woods. I immediately stopped and his friend said that it was him. The friend got out of the car, went into the woods, and started calling his name. I slowly drove along the side while the friend pointed his flashlight into the woods and called out for my boyfriend. There was no sign of him. We stayed and circled the dam for about an hour while I was trying to call his cell phone, hoping that it would light up in the woods. We thought that my boyfriend was hiding from us because he was so pissed. After not getting a single sign or anything from him, we decided to head back to the house, thinking that perhaps he made it back. But when we returned, there was no signs of my boyfriend. I tried calling him, but again, no answer. That's when my buddy mentioned that maybe we scared him off by driving, so we should walk instead. I agreed because I was getting scared and worried that my boyfriend hasn't made any contact with us. The two of us walked back to the dam this time and stayed there for another hour, calling his name, but still, no contact from my boyfriend, so I just gave up. We decided to call it a night and hoped that my boyfriend would call us later. I stayed over at his buddy's house until morning, knowing I had work and very little sleep. While I was slowly drifting off to sleep, I got this text message from my boyfriend saying that he was at home and was wondering where I was at. I was so dumbfounded and told the friend that he was at home the whole time. I took off at around 6 in the morning. Right when I got home, my boyfriend was laying on the couch saying that he was so upset, he called my other friend who was drinking with us that night to come pick him up at the gas station and take him home. He had left his cell phone in their car, and that's why he had to send a text message through the computer. After some back and forth, I asked my boyfriend if he had ever went to the dam because that's where we saw him. That's when my boyfriend gave me the dumbest look ever and asked me why the hell I would walk to the dam in the middle of the night knowing that that place was haunted. That's when I got the goosebumps and the chills. Knowing that I had no sleep and had to work, I ended up going to work and leaving work early. I came straight home and fell asleep with nightmares. As soon as I woke up from the nightmares, I felt something burning on my arm and saw 3 scratch marks. I got really freaked out and contacted my aunt who was a shaman. She immediately came over and blessed the house with hot peppers and said something. She said that something followed me that night from the dam in the shape of my boyfriend because we kept calling out my boyfriend's name. She made me wear a copper bracelet and told me never to return there for a whole year. After that incident, I never visited Coon Rapids Dam. knowing that something or someone was waiting there for me. When we discussed it with my boyfriend's friend, he swore up and down that it was my boyfriend who ran out into the woods that night. Be careful if you decide to visit Coon Rapids Dam in Minnesota. I heard this story about my cousins. My mom told me that my cousin Lee moved into a new house, which was either in Oakdale or Maplewood, Minnesota. I always hear about Lee since he was a rich man who was around his late 50s. Only he and his wife lived together because all of their children got married. As soon as they moved in, strange things started to happen to his wife. Whenever the wife was left home alone, she would see a spirit. Every morning, Lee was always gone to work, so as a typical morning, his wife opened the window curtains. But this time, she saw a white male with long blonde hair staring back at her. She freaked out and let go of the curtains. She opened the curtains again and the spirit was gone. When she was home alone again, she was washing the dishes in the sink. The window was in front of her, and as she looked up, she spotted that same figure walking across from view and disappeared. This one time, she was in bed alone. Oh, I know where this is going. She thought her husband came into the room because she heard the door close. So, she turned on the lights and saw the male spirit staring back at her. She freaked out, and from there, I don't know what happened because that was all I heard. And that's all I wanted to tell you. My cousin's wife hates it when Lee goes out and never tells her that he is leaving. She always wakes up to find her husband gone. If I was in their shoes, I would be mad, seriously. But anyways, they finally moved out of the house and nothing happened to them ever since. And that's what happens when you go work all day and you leave your partner at home. You know, they start to say that, oh, they see ghosts and spirits, but really it's just their side piece coming to visit them, you know? This is a true event that happened to me in 2009 in St. Paul, Minnesota. These duplexes were right off of Johnson Parkway and 7th. On a Saturday afternoon, my girlfriend at the time had received a phone call from her sister for some help later on that night. It was to prepare for a ritual of her sister's deceased father-in-law. I was close to my girlfriend's brother-in-law, so he had asked for me to go help too. Saturday night, we went over and helped them prep, pulled paper, tie strings, clean, etc. We had about 4 beers each. As the night went on and we were almost done with prepping, we ran out of beers, so the brother-in-law told me to grab some more from the basement. This basement had really steep steps and was dark. All that was in the basement was a single couch in the center of the basement, a rug, a TV, and an extra fridge. As I was opening the fridge, I heard a loud banging from behind me. I took the beers and ran up. I asked the brother-in-law if he had something in the basement. He laughed and said, "Sorry, I forgot to tell you, but we have chickens down there for the ritual tomorrow." Big relief for me, so I laughed it off. After our beers, we decided all to head to bed. My girlfriend and I were going to sleep on the couch. I had her choose if she wanted to sleep on the inside or on the edge. She wanted the edge, so I was on the inside. I woke up freezing cold and was butt naked with a baby cloth covering my crotch area. I freaked out and realized I was in the basement, sleeping in an upright position on the couch alone. Before this, my girlfriend and I were supposed to be sleeping in the living room on the couch. My boxers were at my ankles and my clothes were laying next to the couch. I was scared, so I put on my boxers and ran upstairs. As I walked towards my girlfriend, she was hugging a pillow. I was pissed, so I woke her up. She asked me, where did I go? That's when I asked her, how the heck did I end up in the basement? At this point, she was freaked out. She's a light sleeper, and she said that she was holding me this whole time. That night, I was just so scared I didn't go to sleep. We didn't tell her sister or her brother-in-law. To this day, I'm still wondering how I got down there. I think you should get a pregnancy test. So this was just back a few months. I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota, and I've lived in a few places, but that's not the whole point. Anyways, a group of friends and I went to B-dubs for their Tuesday night thing, and we were there around 9 or 10. Nothing really happened until it was time to leave. My friend and I had to use the bathroom, so we went to the ladies' room, and my other friend went to the men's room. My friend enters the first stall closest to the wall while I am in the middle stall, leaving the big stall open. As we were doing our business, we could hear a baby crying in the stall. I got freaked out because I was right next to it. But like the elders say, don't show any fear. So I finished and washed my hands quickly, and my friend had already been waiting for me by the sinks. She looked at me and we just stood there, listening to this thing cry as we got even more freaked out, and we took off out of there. When we got out, my guy friend asked, "Hey, did you guys hear that baby crying? It was so weird. Was there a lady in there with a baby?" My friend and I did not answer, and we just went outside to smoke. We never talked about it ever since then. Interested in sharing your stories? Submit them to HmongChronicles@gmail.com or in the description below. Here is the next story. Thank you. I was a bit bored here at work today, but let me share some of my experiences with you guys. This happened in Minnesota. When I was 5 years old, we had this aunt that would visit us all the time. I don't remember her face or how she looked like, but I felt like I knew this lady. We used to live in an apartment which has the door that was locked, and of course, you had to buzz to get in. One day, she came to knock on the back door. We opened the door, but our door was chained. She was wearing a blue dress as I remembered her standing by the door. My sister asked what she wanted. The aunt requested for my dad, so my sister ran to get my father, but my father was on the phone. He had received a call from California that their relative had hung herself to death. When my sister told him there was a lady at the back door, my father became suspicious. So my father got up and he went, and he saw the aunt by the door. He freaked out and closed the door, locking it. As he looked through the peephole, he saw her standing there. He said to her in Hmong, "My sister, you are dead now. Please don't do this to my family. You're scaring my kids. If you ever need help from me, I will help you." Then we heard her cry, and she eventually went away. A couple of weeks passed and my dad was at church when suddenly, somehow, all the lights died out. Everyone was evacuated immediately and my dad was in the process of getting out, but then he felt something hold onto his shirt. That something would just not let go of him. This was when he knew it was my aunt. He said to her, "My sister, I told you I will help you. If you please let me go, I promise I can help you. Please let me go." Then he felt like she let her shirt go and he took off home. Later that night, we were sleeping, and I remember that this was summertime, but our room turned out to be so cold that it felt like it was below zero, and you could see the air coming out of your mouth. While everyone was asleep, I saw someone in our room. I didn't care so much, so I fell back to sleep. The next day, my dad said that he had a dream that aunt came into his dream. My father prayed for her to move on into the afterlife and for her to be good in her next life. Eventually, after some coercing, she finally left in his dream. After that, nothing happened, but my sister and dad said that they saw her in our bedroom the same night I saw her too. The minute I walked into the dark bedroom, I felt someone watching me. I tried to see who it was, but it was too dark for me to see anything. As it was my first night there, I was unfamiliar with the room, so even if I did see whoever was watching me, I wouldn't know where exactly he was at. One minute, I was trying to get my bearings. The next minute, I felt a big hand grab my arm. I ran out of the bedroom, but because I was so unfamiliar with the house, I kept running into everything. The whole time, I could hear heavy breathing following close behind me. I ran down to the living room and then back up to the bedroom with whoever was chasing me right on my tail. He finally caught me as I was about to run back into my room. He had the most hideous face I've ever seen. His hair was dirty and scraggly. His clothes in person wasn't much better. I fought him and fought him. It seemed like forever before I finally pushed him off of me. I woke up to sunshine shining on my face. It took me a while to realize that it was only a dream and that I was inside of my aunt's house in Minnesota, far away from my California home. Even though it felt like only a dream to me, at that time it really wasn't. That ugly man really does exist. I know because once my aunt's daughter becomes of age, he took her to be his wife. If I knew that that bastard was going to take her away from us, I would have done my best to find a way to kill him. He tried to take me too, but he couldn't. Instead, he took someone close to me. This story always makes me upset because I could have done something if I had known it was a real spirit and not just something my mind made up. Okay, that story was a little interesting. Every night when my mom comes home from work, she likes to call this number where Hmong OGs like to tell stories and talk about stuff. She told me a story that she had heard where this lady who used to live in Minnesota talked about how her daughter was taken away by a dragon. Here is the story. One day, her daughter and her classmates went on a field trip all the way to Duluth at this lake. At this time, they were still living in Minnesota. There were other schools who had went to Duluth for field trips too. When the girl came back home from the trip, she kept seeing this white dragon by the window. She told her mom, and her mom wouldn't believe her because it's not like she also sees it too. Later that night, she had a dream about that white dragon, and the white dragon had said to her that he had followed her home from Duluth when her and her classmate went to the lake. He liked her and wanted to take her to be his wife, but until he finished school, he'll come back to take her. The next day, she told her mom about the dream, and her mom brushed it off, saying that it was probably nothing. The daughter was scared, but since her mom wouldn't believe her, she didn't know what to do. A couple of months had passed by, and their family decided to move to Alaska. When they left to Alaska, the dragon had come back for her, but when he looked through the window, he noticed that the house was empty. A couple of days later, he came back to see if she was still at the house, and no one was there. The mom had to come back to Minnesota to grab some stuff that they left behind, and when she came back to Minnesota, the dragon had saw the mom. Once she retrieved her belongings and went back to Alaska, the dragon followed her all the way over there. Once they got to the house, the dragon finally saw the girl. That night, she dreamt about him, and he had asked her how come she didn't tell him that they moved there. After he finished school, he came back to get her but noticed that the house was empty and no one was living there. That's when he saw her mom at their old house and he had followed her here. Now that he had found her and finished school, he was going to take her to be with him. The next morning, the daughter told her mom, and her mom again brushed it off and said that it was nothing. She was probably thinking too much. One night, the daughter was so scared and wouldn't sleep herself, so her mom had to make the other kids go sleep in the room with her while she slept with her mother. The next day, she was home alone and everyone had left somewhere. The dragon appeared in front of her and took her soul. When her mom had arrived home, she found her daughter on the ground dead. She saw a cut by her wrist, but for some reason, there was only a single drop of blood. The mother cried and cried. That night, the mom had a dream of her daughter, and her daughter told her mom to stop crying and that a dragon had come to take her. The body that they found really wasn't hers. The dragon had replaced her body with a substitute, and for her mom not to worry because when the daughter told her mom her dreams, the mother didn't believe her. She told her mother to come see her at a certain lake whenever she misses her. Ever since then, every time when the mother misses her daughter, she would go to that lake to visit her and would just cry and cry. No one really knows where this lake is. However, it's a really green lake, and a lot of people who goes there go missing. Look, if your kid tells you something for the third, fourth time, heck, even like 2 times in a row, you should start suspecting that there is something going on. Gosh, this could have been prevented a long time ago.